gloomy, isn't it?
It'll be fine. Yep. Okay.
Hello, I'm Andy Britton. This is my room in the toy room studio.
Love the lights.
The lights are nice.
Were they expensive?
They were £30, and you know they're pretty much all anyone likes about my studio. So,
where did you get them from?
got a Pendle.
Well, everyone needs a Pendle.
Everyone needs a Pendle. So, how do you want to?
Well, I don't know. Should we start with?
I haven't got as many toys as everyone else.
No, you've got lovely toys.
I feel
though.
slightly undergunned.
Well, what's your kind of workflow? How do you?
Well, I'm more of a guitarist than a
I
keyboard
see
player,
that.
which is why I have this lot as opposed to everyone else who has lots of keyboards. So yeah, I primarily start on guitar when I'm writing. So guitars into Kemper, the Kemper, which is
I
just
have one of
fabulous.
those.
Everyone should have a Kemper.
Yeah, they are great.
And the big trees. Have you got big trees?
I don't have one of those.
You need a big trees.
I
They're
like
both very
it's got
good.
a knob for each
Knob
thing.
per function.
Yeah.
It's a very important thing. So yeah, I do a lot of guitars through that stuff, and
so what is the what is that?
this is a ludicrously expensive overdrive pedal, really. But it is wonderful. Audio Kitchen, a great company,
Okay.
and it sounds fabulous. So I use that a lot. I'm quite obsessed with guitar pedals when I'm mixing stuff. So I've got this switcher here where I run chains of guitar pedals. Very loud email. Where I run chains of guitar pedals out of my sound card through a reamp box, which is behind there, into this switcher, which means I can run a chain, which has got things like the Space Echo on and a tape delay over there, and then I can mix all these guitar pedals up using this switcher box.
Oh, that's really good.
And it works as a plugin then within Logic. I can set them up as a plugin and kind of with an in-out plugin.
That's such a good system.
And then just then swap out whatever I want. So I've got a cupboard full of pedals over there. So yeah, it's a really Echo Sex. If you ever want to have, so you paid for Echo Sex on your VAT return. Yeah, so basically I use a lot of guitar pedals using these switchers, which I think works really well, and it's nice and quick to do. Because let's face it, if anything's tricky, we don't tend to do it
anymore. That's right.
So yeah, it's
And
definitely worth
do you
doing
use the Fender?
Yeah, I use a lot of. I've basically that's always wired into my system, and I can reamp through it. So I do a lot of reamping through it as well.
It's a lovely looking mic, that.
Yeah, it's an old Sony. It's a really it's a great mic, and that always goes into my API here. So if I want to reamp vocals or snare drums, whatever, it's always set up on the chain. Again, just on an in-out plugin, so I never have to think about moving, essentially.
It's so true, though.
Moving's not good. I've got a rug here, so I can't really slide further than that. So I like to generally, if I can just sit here and make everything else work, then that works well for me. I do quite a bit of mixing as well for other bands. Primarily, I've been a kind of library writer, production music writer for kind of 15, 20 years.
Which companies do you work with?
Universal mainly, but yeah, I flit around a little bit as Universal employees scatter. I tend to scatter with them somewhat. So yeah, I've worked for most of the guys, but 90% of my work's with Universal, who I've been with for 15 odd years, and it's been a great relationship. So I've got a nice position now where I can keep my writing up maybe 3 days a week, spend 2 days a week working with bands or mixing and other projects, whatever I feel like doing really. So it's a really nice position to be in. And I really love working with bands at the moment, which is something I've only done for the last 2 or 3 years really. And yeah, it's been really great. So getting very much into the mixing side of things, still buying hardware, which I must stop doing. I'm not. Yeah, it's a terrible thing.
I'm a big fan of these things. Very, very good.
Yes. No, it's. I mean, plugins are getting great. I personally like to have chains of hardware that I can kind of plug into. So my master bus is always these 3 things here, so they're always linked together. That's always on my vocals. and outboard reverbs, which I'm kind of obsessed with, especially spring reverbs.
Wow.
So I've got
never seen those before.
these are PV valve verbs, which are really hard to find, but they're amazing. They're valve spring reverb with tremolo as well. And I run these as a stereo pair. They were made for just a couple of years in the early 90s. And I got one and then spent ages trying to find another one to have as a stereo pair. So I always have them on mixes. And this Vermona spring, which you don't see around a lot, but it's awesome. It sounds like a plate to me. It's really long and lush. It's DSR3. And then I use the spring in the Space Echo a lot as well, which is a little short, boingy one, which I really like. So yeah, I'm quite obsessed with spring reverbs, which I think I can't quite get that in a plugin yet. I'm sure soon they'll have one.
Right, but you have got a very interesting plugin you were showing me.
This is T-Verb. Did we get money from Eventide if we?
Well, we could
try.
Them.
Yeah, this is a mate. We just got this morning, and it's a fabulous. I have to say, it's the most realistic room plugin I've ever listened to. Yeah, allows you to move all sorts of things around. We're just mucking around with this guitar here. Mind you won't hear it on the microphone. It's not stereo, but yeah, you can move microphones around and get some incredibly realistic spatial effects with it.
And as you were saying, it's quite interesting. It's not like adding reverb. It's just
it has depth. A bloom, and a 3D-ness, that elusive word that everyone talks about, the 3D thing. But yeah, and you can pull the mics right up close and get this amazing kind of realness and richness. It's I wish I'd had this a long time ago, because it seems to be a really fantastic thing. So yeah, that's going to be heavily used, I think, from now onwards.
And you're using the Raven MT1? How are you finding that?
I have kind of the product is great. For me, I've got 20 years of muscle memory that I just can't get over. So even when I have all the controls up, I immediately grab for a mouse or a touchpad, and I keep forgetting that I have it. So it's kind of it's one of those things that you buy thinking this is going to change my life, and I think the product is and it does everything that is described. So it's not Slate's fault in any way, but for me, I can't not put my hand there and move. I can't seem to, when you rely on that kind of intuitive thing. For me, I keep saying this week I will only use the Raven, but I never quite get around to it. So, I mean, do you know people who've got them that are really slick on them?
No, but we went to Andy Gray's at the Isle of Wight.
Yeah.
He really suffers with RSI.
Oh, okay.
And his secret is he has a touchpad, a mouse, and a touch screen, and a controller mixing desk.
Yeah.
And he just, by mixing it up, that seems to be the only solution. It's not like switching from.
I mean, that sounds like a lot of movement to me.
Almost
a manual job. Just getting around to all that stuff.
Yeah. But I think just mixing it up is probably a bit of a solution if that's an issue. But I completely know what you mean.
It's strange, isn't it? I mean, I haven't had a desk, for 15 years, really. I mean, only when you go to other studios, and it's the same thing, I think. If you're not used to people always think, I'll get a mixing desk, mate. I think if you haven't had a mixing desk, you're never...
No.
I totally understand if people have been brought up on an SSL and they're totally used to doing...
Sure.
That's their muscle memory, that's how it works. But I think if I got an SSL in here, it would cost me no end of time, because it's just not something I'm physically used to doing. No, I think that's the problem with this, is that I forgot that I've spent so long without touching the screen that now I can't.
No.
But annoyingly, I've just got a new computer, and I used to run everything off a laptop. I've just got a new Mac Pro. So now I've only really got one screen. So now I might have to buy another one, even though I don't use it, just to have another screen, because it has to match.
Yeah, it does.
Matching's important. So I might end up playing a ludicrous situation where I have two.
I've just gone curved, ultra wide.
Oh, I like that.
Well, working in R linear, it's great because you can use like peripheral vision, but you can also just chuck stuff away.
So how big a screen are we looking at?
This wide.
Oh, yeah.
And curved.
So you get kind of enveloped.
Yeah, you do. And it's just with us working kind of left to right as opposed to up and down.
Makes sense.
Works,
yeah. Wow.
So you were using your focals, happy with those?
Yeah, I've had them for a couple of years now. I adore them, actually, I have to say. And in the main room here, there's some trios, which are the kind of slightly smaller ones, which sound great too. I really like the focals. In fact, I think getting them made me really get into mixing. Actually, having said that, I think it was the one thing that suddenly to be able to hear kind of the bottom end on them is quite something. So yeah, I adore them.
Do you switch on the nasty tens to fill
yourself
with self-loathing and displeasure?
I tend to tune vocals on NS10s for some reason.
Right.
I find them and leveling. There is something strangely magical about getting levels on NS10s.
Okay.
I don't know, but again, I've had them for a long time, so you kind of get used to that.
Yeah.
I've got no idea how people EQ a track using NS10s.
No.
I really don't understand that because I can't really hear much of a difference when I EQ on NS10s. but I think relationships between instruments, I think they're very good at.
I have a friend who's a producer who only uses NS10s, and he was so worried that basically he was going to get put out of business when that he bought 180 sets of tweeters. Basically all of the tweeters that were
That's
left.
Amazing. 180 sets.
Yeah, he just went, I'll have more.
Just how many have you got? I'll take every one.
Every one, because this is all I'll ever be able to use for the rest of my life. So,
I don't understand it. I don't understand how you get a bass drum in NS10s. I would love to sit with somebody who's really good at NS10s. And having said that, I run mine off a horrendously cheap hi-fi amp, which I really like.
Oh, I used to have one of those.
It's the classic.
There's that thing that you switch it on. It takes about 5 minutes to click on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes has a bit of a mind of its own.
Yeah, totally. And I had a really nice souped-up quad amp running them for ages, but it developed to hum, and it never quite got it to work. And I just stuck that on them one day, and it's been there for about 5 years now. And so I'm sure they're not the greatest sounding NS10s in the world. I haven't got a $5 grand Britton on them or anything.
Right. Okay.
But they're meant to sound a bit shit, aren't they?
I doubt. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's, and I use the Bose a lot, which are kind of hateful sounding things. Really, they've got.
Is that your car stereo kind?
Yeah, they've got that kind of horrible kind of scooped, really bright top endy thing, but it's definitely worth checking this out. And the stereo speakers are so close together that you kind of almost check in mono as well. But I think most houses have them. Most houses that I go into, or friends, they all seem to have these Bose or the Sonos systems, and that's kind of what people listen to music on.
That's what people
now.
think things sound like.
And certain things sound great. You know, certain commercial albums you stick on there. A Taylor Swift album sounds unbelievable on there. Yeah. You know, it was to say my daughter's really into One Direction. You know, the records sound amazing on these things. I mean, it's just like it's the technical genius of how those things are put together. Because on these small systems, they sound huge. Yeah. So yeah, I do like to monitor on lots of different things, but the vocals I'm on 90% of the day, and they're really nice. They're really nice. Yeah. The bottom end's is definitely something to be wowed, especially if you can get the passive radiators on top. They really jump up.
Yes, I've seen those in action.
Brilliant. Yeah, so that's quite fun.
Fantastic.
Yeah, the only synth I really use a lot of is the Prophet 6, which is about 4 of them, I think, in the studio now here.
Yes.
Well, as you can probably tell, everyone tries to keep up with each other. So, I was the first one to get this, by the way, just for...
So you influenced that particular
everyone
craze.
Everyone has one of these. I think every studio has the analog keys. There's certain things if people get them, and so I mean you're the same. You're in the studio for lots of other people.
Absolutely, and I think with Spitfire, the more and more composers I meet, the more I realise that we're not in competition for gigs.
Yeah, no.
We're on competition on eBay for what I refer to as divorceware.
Yeah. I have a friend of mine who's a fantastic guitar player, and he always says whoever dies with the most guitars wins. So I think it's perfectly true. I think that's how it's a terrible thing, the gear acquisition syndrome.
Yeah.
And we all suffer from it pretty badly.
And it's coupled with the fact that the taxman kind of pays for it a little bit as well.
Yeah, half. We go half.
We go halves with the taxman.
Everything's half price. Yeah. But it doesn't work like that in the end, does it?
It doesn't really.
In our heads, that's how it works. But no, we all end up paying too much for these things. But I mean, although I'm not equipped like a lot of people on this, I do want to come into work to play with things.
Absolutely. I was saying, so many people kind of go, well, you can get plugins. It's not just about how it sounds, but how it makes you feel. And that translates 100%. Into your work.
Especially with hardware, I think, it's funny, I've recently got this EQ and I've got the plugin. And they sound, there's no discernible different than an average punter would listen to.
Yeah.
But I find it 10 times easier to EQ on this, just because you can sweep and you kind of, even though I'm bent down, like, but there's something about. So yeah, sonically, I don't think there's a massive amount of difference nowadays between software and hardware, but there's definitely a difference between feeling like you're involved in what you're in the sound you're making, which I think is a good thing to do. Especially, I mean, all the people in this building, it's all about really, whether it be real synths or I've got a beautiful old tiny little mini piano back there, which we use on everything, which sounds wonderful, and real Hammonds, which we use, which is the one on Pendle's Sound Dust.
Oh right, yeah.
That's the Hammond there that was used on that. So yeah, I always just try and use real instruments if I can, especially drums, which, as you can probably hear, pounding away in the corner at the moment. The room's being used at the moment. So yeah, I think realness is the thing that makes me want to come to work. So whether it be moving faders and knobs and playing instruments and getting microphones out, as long as none of this involves moving too much. I don't. I'm making it sound like I'm flying. I don't. I mean, generally sitting here going, ugh.
Yeah. But, a producer we saw recently, he's got these latch-lake mics stands, and the main reason is because he can sit there and just go pull them round. Yeah.
That's horrendously. I do in drunken madness. Sometimes I'm hovering on the KMR website on the latch.
Well, it's very funny because at Music Messa they would demonstrate them by actually holding up anvils above people's heads. But this guy Andy made a very good point. He said, I put a 15 grand mic on a mic stand once, and it fell to the floor, and it smashed, and I could, that was it, gone. So it's worth spending.
It is, but I mean, it's like 600, 700 quid on a stand, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, that's quite a lot for a mic stand. It's decadent, isn't it?
It is decadent.
But one nice one that you can just swing around.
You swing around.
It's a nice idea. I might do it tonight. It's a Friday night.
Few schnufters.
Come on, Latch Lake. Let's do me proud. Make me a happy man. Yeah, maybe. Cool. I've always got cheap mic stands.
You do, don't you?
Yeah.
With a really expensive mic on it.
Yeah. Well, it puts that element of surprise in the whole. Especially this building is falling down. I'm sure you noticed. So every floor has this. It's got an amazing gradient here of this floor, and so everything falls over constantly. And if I'm sitting here, I often find myself just slowly rolling down the hill. So yeah, the whole building is it's not going to be around for long.
Right.
It's good that you've done this now. To be fair, because it's not going to be here for much longer, I don't think.
Well, I appreciate your time.
It's been lovely. It's been lovely, and I love your products. I use them constantly.
Fantastic. Well,